Good Sunday morning, everyone. Doing this stream a little bit earlier than we normally do because I want to make sure that you are safe as you're heading out the door this morning. And as we get closer to 10 o'clock, when our show is over, the rain is going to be starting to see that midday lull. So as you're heading out the door this morning, we have very active rain and active precipitation across the entire region. In fact, here's a look here from Beach Mountain Summit. You can see very hard to see this morning. It's areas of low clouds, cloudy conditions, plus a little bit of wind up toward the mountains. And of course, that wintry mix allowing for what looks like an almost whiteout condition. Very, very hard to see there from Beach Mountain. Now, we're still talking bigger impacts for the mountains overall because of the wintry weather expected. So we're going to try to get closer to this afternoon once we start to see that cold rain. So winter weather impacts, this is for the mountains only. Again, freezing rain accumulation possible, sleet accumulation possible, isolated power outages not out of the question, but thankfully the wind's likely not going to be high enough that they're adding additional problems. What's looking like the mountains right now, and I've actually been writing this down throughout the morning as I've been looking at model data, it looks like mainly this morning's wintry mix is going to have a little bit of freezing rain, a little bit of ice. However, as we get closer to the early afternoon time frame, temperatures in the mountains will be warming to the upper 30s. That should transition any ice into a cold rain, which is what we're seeing for the rest of the Charlotte area. Then, as we get closer to this evening, as temperatures are clearing out, or sorry, as we get closer to this evening, as rain conditions are drying out and clearing out across our area here in the Charlotte metro, they'll still be seeing moisture up in the mountains. That's when I expect the sleet and snow to develop. We know that ice will be a bigger issue for places like bridges and overpasses, other elevated surfaces. So good reminders to, of course, stay weather aware up in the mountains as you're getting closer to this morning and again the early morning hours tomorrow. Here's the good news is a lot of the ice accumulation as I progress the model data forward is starting to limit. I do believe that's because most of the freezing rain potential has already happened. Most of the ice has already happened. So not expecting a lot of additional issues moving forward. That, of course, the mountains. Let's talk the rest of the Piedmont, the rest of our impacted areas. Here are live pictures from Monroe, Dallas, Kannapolis. What do they all have in common? Well, it's dreary, it's gloomy. We've been tracking areas of light to moderate rain so far this morning. What happens often with a wedge cold air damming situation is you have that cold air that's trapped on the east side of the mountains. So you're cloudy, you're chilly for really the entirety of the day. But you also have often drizzle. So there's kind of a mix this morning of areas that are still seeing the drizzle and areas that are really truly seeing the rain. So notice as we take a wide view of satellite and radar, a lot of the pockets of more moderate to heavy rain are now moving to the east side of Charlotte. So still a drizzle locally here in Mecklenburg County, but we're starting to see kind of that lull in the pockets of heavier rain, which is good news. So still seeing some of that heavier rain for the east side of Union County, Anson County, northern Chesterfield County, and parts of eastern Stanley County. So right now, again, that's heading further away from Meck County, but is still across our area. Richmond County, you really haven't seen the heaviest rain so far. That's over toward Rockingham, but you can still see some areas of light showers for Mecklenburg County, York, Chester, Lancaster, up toward areas of Alexander, Iredell, and of course the shading of pink indicates that wintry mix. But as we take a wider view across the Carolinas, you can see there is heavier rain, more rain on the way. So we're not quite done yet with this low pressure system. Get a lot of questions a lot of times of, we know freezing rain and sleet are both wintry precipitation. What's the difference between the two? It's how shallow the warm air layer is. So when you see rain, you have snow that falls from the clouds because the air way high up in the atmosphere is cold enough for it to fall as snow. But then all of the layers closer to the ground in our atmosphere are warm, so it melts. When you have snow, it's the opposite. Every single layer is cold enough for snow to form. But with sleet and freezing rain, there's what we often refer to as the warm nose. With sleet, it's a little bit shallower, so it's more of an actual nose. You can see that shallow layer of warm air. That allows for enough time for the cold air to redevelop as it gets closer to the ground. If you look at the house, you see some kind of accumulation. That is actually sleet. Sleet can accumulate on the ground. But with freezing rain, the layer of warm air is a lot more dense, so it falls through that warm air layer for a lot longer, and it refreezes as it gets closer to the ground, oftentimes on contact with surfaces like roads, bridges, overpasses, and that's why it's more of an issue because folks drive, there's black ice, they don't know it. And of course, that can cause some, slick spots, some hydroplaning, some skidding, things of that nature. So that's the difference between freezing rain and sleet. Let's see if the graphics want to advance, shall we? There we go. So hour by hour on Futurecast, again, it's going to be a nasty Sunday. It's not raining all day, but it is going to be cloudy, dreary, cold, chilly, all those words for the entirety of your Sunday. As we look at Futurecast, you can see again some breaks in the rain, but really not expecting it to clear out completely until this evening. Notice that areas north of Charlotte, I do think see more breaks this afternoon, but again, same thing, not done with it yet. Look at Futurecast, what happened. So we have that midday break in rain for areas, I would say I-40 corridor and north. Lesser of a true break here in Mecklenburg County, but it won't, again, rain for the entire day. But as we get closer to 5, 6, 7 o'clock, look, it's every single person in our 22 counties seeing some kind of shower activity reforming this afternoon and evening. We don't truly clear out across most of the Piedmont until I would say closer to 11 p.m. But around this same time frame, we still have moisture up in the mountains. So well, again, I mentioned this earlier. They're seeing freezing rain now, midday cold rain, sleet and slip no overnight. This is really truly when it starts to happen. Notice the moisture making that changeover. You see the greens, the pinks, but then eventually just the blues. That'll be their best chance for snow. And this should allow for some accumulation up toward those mountain areas. Right now, I'm still holding pretty strong with the 1 to 2 inches for areas, I would say 2,500 feet and above at a maximum. 5,000 feet and above, there is a chance you can have higher totals because there is a northwesterly wind, which oftentimes allows for those slightly higher totals, especially in places like Grandfather Beach and Sugar Mountains. However, this is not nearly as much as the system we had just a few weeks ago. Today's high temperatures, it is going to be cold. It is going to be cold. You guys know how it feels. You're outside, a high temperature of, let's say, 40, but it's sunny and there's no wind. It can feel about 5, if not 10 degrees warmer because of the sunshine. It is the opposite effect when it is cloudy. It is chillier, more likely that your hands, are going to start to feel like you need gloves. So highs in the upper 30s and lower 40s allow for a very, very chilly feel. Cloudy, chilly, dreary, cold, gloomy, drizzly, all of those words used to describe your Sunday. The good news is tomorrow morning looks a lot better for Charlotte. We'll still be dealing with some of that snow in the mountains, which will have an impact, especially when snow falls on surfaces that have already seen ice. So they'll have to keep a close eye on that too and stay weather aware once again Monday morning. But across the rest of the Charlotte area, we'll see a lot of sunshine. Highs will reach the lower 50s. It does look to turn a tad breezy Monday once the storm system has passed by, but that should settle down by Tuesday. That's probably going to be my pick of the week just because it's the warmest day and the sunniest day of the upcoming week. We have a second chance of rain on Wednesday before conditions do clear out as we end this upcoming week and enter the final weekend of January. So this morning, multiple rounds of showers. We're starting to get closer to that midday break. Eventually more rain on the way. We'll have more coming up on Wake Up Charlotte weekend starting at 9 o'clock. But, this rain is not going to be a crazy impact in terms of a lot of heavy rain, a lot of accumulation, a significant flooding risk, things of that nature. But it is an annoying rain. It is a pesky rain, and it is a rain that is going to impact your Sunday. So be sure to be safe, give yourself that extra time on the roadways, and have a great Sunday. Maybe some suggestions on what you can do inside. Read a book, nap, watch a movie, anything that involves staying indoors. Have a great Sunday, everybody, regardless of the weather.